Thank you for this invitation. Yeah, I knew you were going to ask this question, so I've been sitting with it and letting it kind of like hover in my consciousness for the past couple months. And I'm going to share a story that's like pretty vulnerable and I haven't shared publicly before, but it feels appropriate. So, and there's a couple layers of magic to the story. So I think I mentioned earlier, that there was this period of time when I was playing with the Moby or the musician Moby. And just to backtrack a little bit, in my mid 20s, I was in a band called Salt and Samovar, and we had a show scheduled um, at this bar in New Jersey, just kind of like a regular, Thursday night kind of show. And as we got closer to the performance date, the headliner backed out. And so I think the promoter was like really scrambling, was like, how am I gonna like find a replacement and especially like someone who can like draw a crowd. And so apparently he like posted a video on YouTube saying like if any of the following musicians agree to play this show, I'll play you $1,000. And Moby was one of them. And I guess I don't know if someone forwarded it to him or what, but somehow Moby sees this video and reaches out to the promoter and is like, "Yeah, sure, I'll play your show." And so I like accidentally end up opening for Moby. And I can't quite explain what happened, but I will say that I felt this really strong impulse to just be so present and so in devotion to the music that night. And something happened because then like a few days later Moby reached out to my then bandmate via MySpace and asked for my info. And so we start like hanging out, and he asked me to sing on his record. I sang on this record he put out called Wait For Me. And then he jumped on board with this album I was working on at the time called Peace and became one of the co-producers. And then eventually he asked me to go on tour with him. Like he was like, "I'm going to Europe for 6 weeks. Will you please come?" And I was like, "Yes." Yeah. So I joined Moby's band and I was like playing keys and I was singing and I was like having the time of my life, like flying in private planes, staying in five-star hotels, like getting room service. Yeah, until they shut that all down. But like, yeah, it was a really good ride. And it was also really challenging because I was a mom. And at the time, my son was 2. Yeah, so I was leaving my son at, a really critical time in terms of like his development and the development of our relationship and his, feeling of attachment and safety. And it was a really conflicted time for me because I was like, oh, this is such an incredible opportunity, but like I'm really sacrificing so much. And I ended up touring with him off and on for about 2 years. And eventually, we went our separate ways. And that experience of conflict and regret really weighed on me for a long time of like, man, I like really doubting myself and like, did I do the right thing? Like, because, I had learned so much from the experience. I learned a lot about what I did like about being a tour musician and a lot of stuff, but that I didn't like. And had I not gone, I wouldn't have had those lessons. But I was also like, did I fuck up my kid? And is this going to come back to bite both of us? So all to say it like it weighed on me for a long time. And then fast forward to 2021, I joined an online women's circle that was all about unpacking being good enough. And we met weekly and we were guided through these visualization exercises, and we took turns practicing nature and energy healing work on each other. And each week we would like take turns working with these tools to heal a member of the group. And when it was my turn to receive the healing energy from the group, I was invited to visualize myself in like a really safe place in nature, and I immediately went to this ridge that I had spent a lot of time on during the pandemic that just was like covered in the like softest, most nurturing moss ever, and surrounded by like all of these amazing pine trees, and there was like a river with like a waterfall. And so I immediately saw myself in that place. And then the facilitator then invited me to let come to the surface something painful and something that I was needing healing around, like being good enough. Um, and this wound around my mothering came up. And I start to see my son like walking towards me on the ridge, and he's like his younger self, and I'm just like apologizing to him for leaving him, and I'm like apologizing to myself and trying to send myself love and compassion, and then all of a sudden I just feel this like really palpable energy surrounding me, and it's these women sending me loving light and healing energy. And then out of nowhere, my son, who is 14 at the time and in the room, the next room over, yells out, "I love you, Mom." And I just lost it. Yeah. And I can't believe I just told that without crying. Yay. I'm like, I just felt so called to share this story because I think it demonstrates the magic of intention and attention and our ability to heal each other and ourselves, and also how fast healing can be sometimes. Because I think a lot of times what keeps us in the fear state of like, I can't even touch that wound, is this misconception that like going into the wound is going to take over and it's going to take your entire life to fix that thing. And like in that instant, we were all healed.